Okay, so I'm going to take this heart and for the sake of demonstration, I'll make it bigger. And I'm going to make it a color. And this is going to be my base shape. I'm going to duplicate that and put it to the side. Then what I'm going to do is use some gradient here. So I'm going to bring up my gradient menu. I'm going to take a slightly darker orange and put it into the gradient palette. I'm going to have one end where the opacity is at 100% and then another end where the opacity is at 0. And actually I'm going to use an even darker orange so you guys can see it more clearly. Yeah. So I've got shape with a gradient on it. I could go ahead and duplicate this and put it on top of my existing shape and creates a nice effect there. But really that's something I could also do just with one gradient. So it's not a huge difference. I'm going to select this shape and go over to effects. And really any kind of effect where it's breaking down the shape into little bits, whether it be points or halftones or anything like that, will work. I'm going to go down to texture and choose grain. So it'll bring up this window and it'll show me what the image is going to look like after I put the effect on it. You can change the intensity, basically how grainy or how smooth it is. And then it creates the effect here. Then I'm going to take this shape and put it on top of my object. And so then if I zoom in, you can see the texture. So you could do this with other types of effects. Let me turn this one off and try something else. I'm going to try pointillize. A little something different. I'm going to go back to grain, turn pointillize off. If I wanted to with the gradient, I could push the gradient more towards one side. So then the grain is a little bit more subtle and it's isolated to one edge. So if I wanted to do something so it looks like a shadow, I could do that. I could also change the rotation a little bit, maybe 30. I can change the rotation, so maybe it's a little bit away from the side. There's also the gradient tool that you can always use and go in and edit the orientation of the gradient. So I can turn it a little bit. There you go. So I can turn it and maybe place it just on the edge there, so it kind of creates a subtle shadow. So this, you can also do this texture for a background. Let's say I can just take a rectangle and fill it with one color, take a box, put it in front, make it a different color, or a different gradient, and then do some kind of texture. And do that throughout the whole thing. Maybe it's not a gradient, maybe it's just a slightly lighter color. And I could use some of the opacity and transparency settings to change how how bold or how subtle it is. So this is on multiply, but I'm changing the opacity so the grain is very fine. So that's one way to kind of create textures, say for your background, maybe to make it look like rough paper or something that's worn a little bit. So just some stuff to try while you're working on your symbols. It's really good to work with for solid shapes or just different ways of applying light and shadow with your images. All right, carry on.